Welcome to Pesto Comics Audio Edition. This is the entry for June 4th, 2025. Spring into summer reading season. The books I'm reading and looking forward to. Welcome back. As much as I love comics, there's something romantic about novels. For me, it extends beyond being a writer. I'm an avid reader as well. I think to be a successful writer, you have to be. Not just to know what trends are out there and how to put words together, but to understand how to get emotion and conviction through on the page with just words. When I fantasize about my life as a full-time writer, I have two very clear images of what that would look like. One is me sitting on a dock in Muskoka, right on the water, as I type away on my latest masterpiece. You know about this one if you read my post from a couple months ago. The other one is something that I think is a little more likely to become a reality, even if it feels far away. I'd love to open a cafe that welcomes writers and readers alike, offering a quiet and cozy third space to enjoy a coffee and some baked goods while you tap away on your keyboard or flip through the pages of your favorite novel. That picture is crystal clear in my head. I've read the many horror stories about actually following through with that. Thin margins, fickle customers, and frustrating landlords keep it as nothing more than a fantasy. For now, at least. One thin-margined endeavor is plenty in the meantime. Instead, I'll continue to fantasize and be inspired by the novels I read while I toil away in the basement on my own works. I'm in the thick of writing a book right now, which I'll be very excited to share with you once it's closer to ready. Since we're not quite there yet, and we're halfway through the year, I'd like to share what I've read and what I plan to read this year. But before we get into that, we have some business to tend to. Worklog Updates. This week, I got this done. Sent out surveys and digital copies for From Parts Unknown number 3. Finalized From Parts Unknown number 3 with the printer. Hopefully arriving before I leave for East Coast Comic Expo, but we'll see. Sent the first script and series outline for Project Junk to the artist. Ditto for Project Cut. Booked lodging for the East Coast Comic Expo. This is the plan for next week. Continue fixing PestoComics.com. Ditto for PulpWriterly.com. Another ditto for BigSmokePulp.com. Prep for TCAF on the weekend, and hit the word count goals for Project Hollywood. For projects I can talk about, Project Updates. Based on the poll last week, I'll be keeping this section short and sweet going forward. Only time I'll make an exception is when I'm announcing something brand new, which will happen soon, but not yet. Here's what I got for you now. 1. From Parts Unknown launches on June 25th. Follow the pre-launch page. And number 2, Big Smoke Pulp Volume 1 is available on KU from now through August. That's 40 incredible stories from 40 excellent authors, including yours truly. And media updates. You already know that I pushed the launch for From Parts Unknown number 4 to make sure it would have the biggest launch possible. Launches are everything on Kickstarter, so I've been making the rounds on a few podcasts to get the awareness out there. On the Substack, you can find links to the Cryptid Creator Corner, Comics Launch, and Two Geeks Talking. I had fun on all 3 of these, and I'm excited to do more in the future, but I'm ready to start meeting people face-to-face at conventions starting this weekend. Convention updates. This Saturday and Sunday, you can find me at the Mattamy Athletic Center, that's the top level of the old Maple Leaf Gardens, in my hometown of Toronto, Ontario for TCAF. I'll be at table 252, by the benches on the ice rink. I'll be joined by my good buddy, Danon Hennessy of Dyson Development. Plus, I'll be next to my frequent convention buddies at Comics Asylum, and next to them will be my Instant Ink co-host, Roberto Villacava. This is a wishlist con for me. I'm excited to finally be there, but to be able to do it with good friends is a bonus. East Coast Comic Expo. The following weekend, June 13th and 14th, I'll be in Moncton, New Brunswick on Friday and Saturday for the East Coast Comic Expo. Though there's fewer familiar faces at this event, I'll have one person I know right next to me. My table neighbor is the talented Amelia Strilchuk. You can find me at table C6 at the end of the row. The next 2 entries of this Substack will be con journals for these conventions. I'll be experimenting with the post format a bit, trying to get a lot more video. So it should be a fun time if you can't make it, but if you can, come say hi. And with that, let's get into it. Main story. My Reading Philosophy. Before we get into the books themselves, I want to give you some context into how I read. I know there's a big debate about audiobooks and whether they're actually reading. I think they are, although they're not exactly the same thing. You're still getting the context of the book. If it's a book I really enjoy, I'll do both anyway to make sure I'm getting the full experience. Until we come up with another name for it, I'm going to count it as a form of reading. That said, I'm not just listening to audiobooks. I usually have multiple books on the go at the same time. One on my Kobo, one on my Kindle, and yes, I have both. Another as a hard copy, if not two, and an audiobook. I'm not even including comics in this list. Some might say this is an inefficient way of reading. I should focus on one book and read it from beginning to end. But I find that I enjoy it a lot more if I can read a book until I start to drag on it, then jump to something else. Having access to both Kobo Plus and Kindle Unlimited keeps me fed, along with the Toronto Public Library. I also have quite an extensive collection, as I frequent the thrift stores in the area, buying a whole host of used books. And of course, for those authors that I really enjoy, I always make sure to pick up a fresh copy for myself. I do try to be disciplined as I'm running out of space for my books, along with my vast comic collection. I keep track of my reading progress on Goodreads, and the collection itself on CLZ. Goodreads is not my favorite site, but it's still the most popular one out there. Although there have been alternatives that have popped up, I find they're not as well populated, nor are they as easily updated as Goodreads has been. Even though the site is archaic and has all kinds of issues. I'm still waiting for a proper alternative, and will be happy to jump ship when that's available. With all that said, let's look into the books that I've read so far this year. The books that won me over, so far. I've read more than what was listed below in 2025. As of this writing, I've read about 30 books so far this year across the different modes I've mentioned. For these, I'll let you know how I read each one. And a quick note, I just got the Kindle, so none of those have shown up on this list yet. Between us, the Kobo is leaps and bounds better than Amazon's device. My goodness, what a difference. There's a real sci-fi bent to the books I read this year. I'm usually reading more thrillers and noir type stuff, think Mickey Spillane and Lawrence Block, but the trend this year has been sci-fi all the way. When the Moon Hits Your Eye by John Scalzi. Format read, hardcover, from the Toronto Public Library. John Scalzi is one of my must-read authors. I really enjoy everything I've read of his so far, but I still have quite a bit to go. His ability to bring logic to absolute nonsense is something I'd love to replicate with my work. In this case, the moon turns into cheese. The world reacts, and it somehow all makes sense. I loved this book. It's one of my favorites so far. Service Model by Adrian Tchaikovsky. Format read, audiobook via Overdrive. I really enjoy Tchaikovsky's shorter works. There's always a bit of an edge to them. A bit of anger with the world and the status of things. That's what the best sci-fi is supposed to do. With Service Model, you get class warfare and the meaning of life all in one. One Day This Will All Be Yours by Adrian Tchaikovsky. Format Kobo ebook. I double-dipped Tchaikovsky this year, catching up with One Day This Will All Be Yours. I haven't read the other novellas in this series yet, but I enjoyed this one so much that I probably will. Even though this novella is mostly about the grumpiest person at the end of time itself, I had a good time with it. In Our Likeness by Brian Van Dyke. Format read, hardcover from the Toronto Public Library. Anytime you get to knock tech bros and that culture down a peg, I'm going to enjoy it. Giving the same tech bros the ability to alter reality and perception itself delivers in some unexpected yet somehow inevitable ways. Dissolution by Nicholas Binge. Format hardcover from the Toronto Public Library. Dissolution is a hard one to recommend, honestly. There are two simultaneous plot lines that should pay off nicely in the end. Instead, I found myself frustrated by the parts with Maggie. I just didn't care, but I enjoyed the bits with Stanley so much that it salvaged it. You by Caroline Kepnes. One of the few non-sci-fi books I read was prompted by the upcoming, at the time, series finale of You. Joe Goldberg, penned by Penn Badgley, always wrestled with the fact that it is just too charming that you end up rooting for the monster. The book does not wrestle with this at all. Joe is an incel, which makes the book interesting in a whole different way than the show. Not better or worse, just different. Cinema Speculation by Quentin Tarantino. Format audiobook via Overdrive. Feel however you might about Quentin Tarantino and his work, but one thing that's undeniable is that he's a human encyclopedia for film history, particularly classic films. With Cinema Speculation, you get the best insight of what's inspired him and his body of work. Revisionaries. What we can learn from the lost, unfinished, and just plain bad work of great writers, by Christopher Jansma. Format Kobo ebook. I've read a lot of writing books. They tend to cover a lot of the same ground after a while, which made revisionaries so refreshing. It looks at classic works, much of which I've read but not all, and tells you how these legendary authors struggled to follow up on their classics, or write the classics themselves. It was a great reminder of something that I should get a tattoo of. Writing is rewriting. Put Your Ass Where Your Heart Wants to Be by Steven Pressfield. Format Kobo ebook. This is the only reread of my collection so far in 2025. Steven Pressfield is not for everyone. He's kind of a hustle bro, but for writers. A lot of just do it advice. He has a tendency to oversimplify art and the work that goes into it a bit too much for some. For me, I sometimes need that to light a fire under me to get going. I like to return to this and similar books when I need a kick in the ass to get back to writing. Books I'm excited to read. Atmosphere by Tyler Jenkins Reid. I have a short list of authors that are automatic reads for me. John Scalzi is one. Taylor Jenkins Reid is another. I just got this book as I was writing this entry, and Indigo sent me a Deckle Edge copy, which I loathe. I'm usually not into character novels, where the plot is mushy or questionable, but Reid knows how to keep the tension in her stories, even if the plot isn't the main focus. The Phoenix Pencil Company by Allison King. I usually shy away from the fantasy genre entirely. I'll make an exception if it's grounded in some sense of reality, which seems to be the case with the Phoenix Pencil Company. There's a bit of time travel, shady governments, and sci-fi-esque intrigue to get me in the door. Fever Beach by Carl Hiaasen. When I think about Florida and all the wild things that go on there, I picture the one Hiaasen paints so clearly. It might be exaggerated and over the top at times. With Fever Beach, he picks on a certain group from the headlines of today. I imagine it'll be more fun than ever. Notes on Infinity by Austin Taylor. Sensing a theme yet? Time travel or aging death always get me in the door. With Notes on Infinity, we're talking about an anti-aging drug and the ramifications of success. This checked a lot of boxes for me. With A Vengeance by Riley Sager. One of the few thrillers to make the cut. There's usually a lot more on my list. And this one has a premise so clear that I wish I thought of it first. A revenge tale with a captive group of ne'er-do-wells who get caught up in a murder mystery and no way to escape. It almost writes itself, which makes it interesting to see if it lives up to the hype in my head. Making History by K.J. Parker. I love the concept of idiots in power asking to make the impossible happen, and what happens when they're able to do it. It's cathartic to see that it could technically be worse, even if real life doesn't feel that far off from this at times. Not just entertainment. Being an elder millennial myself, I lived through the 2000s and 2010s where boomers and Gen X would continually tell us that we were ruining every industry, we're too lazy to buy a home, and we just wanted to live the easy life. Being painted with a broad brush is never fun. I've been working since I was a teenager, always hustling to get the next thing going, both in my regular career and the art side. With that caveat out of the way, I do find it concerning to hear that the younger generation is reading less and less. I don't know if that's entirely true. We've certainly lost the monoculture where everyone is reading the same book at the same time, and I think that's a good thing. There are more books written than we'll ever have time to read, even if we only read our entire lives. Having them be the same handful of books is a tragedy. The fact that more voices are getting out there, and selfishly speaking, my own as well, I can't help but see an expanding market, even if it's not as all-encompassing as it once was. That's true of every industry out there. If I were to entertain the panic and concern, I would be worried that we're going to lose our empathy if people truly stopped reading. Indeed, films, television shows, even TikTok shorts will give you a glimpse into other people's lives, but they can also be dangerous propaganda on rapid fire. Reading develops a whole extra layer of media literacy that helps navigate all other media. Kind of like how learning the piano is the foundation for playing nearly every other instrument. If we focus on the potential good of reading, nothing will build empathy like a good fiction book. Capitalism will tell you to read business books and self-help books more than fiction, but fiction has an important place in the world. Nothing actually gets you in the head of another character in the same way that a novel will. I say this as a huge fan of nearly every other medium out there. They all have their place, and I think novels do too. I'm very excited to be joining this world, while keeping another foot firmly within the comics realm. I've only gone as far as short stories in the past, never feeling as confident as I do now. I have multiple stories pent up, just waiting to be written, and I'm done waiting to share them with you. Until next time, what have you been reading? Do you have anything you enjoy? Anything you look forward to reading this summer? Where do you like to read? Let me know in the comments. And now, let's look at what's coming up on the Substack. Saturday, June 7th, our next paid post. Cool and Collected, the full behind the scenes of Stay Cool. And Wednesday, June 11th, a con journal, finally tabling at the Toronto Comics Arts Festival. And Wednesday, June 18th, another con journal, East Coast Comic Expo, my first time out to the Maritimes. And just a quick note about those two entries. I'm going to be trying something new. I'm going to be taking a lot of video over the next couple weekends, and I'm trying to do this in more of a vlog style of things. So I'll definitely have the regular text posts in there so that you can read if you're more of a reader, but considering you're listening now, there's going to be some cool visuals to go with the audio next week. And the next paid post coming on Saturday, June 21st, The Truth Behind Tabling. Hello, come say hi, please. And let's look at the upcoming appearances. So, I've said it a few times already, TCAF this weekend. I will be at table 252 at the Mattamy Athletic Center in Toronto, Ontario. It's free to go, so if you're in the Toronto area, I highly recommend going. I love TCAF. It's honestly one of my favorite events to go to every year, and I'm so happy that I'm finally able to table it at this event. And it means even more that it's in the Mattamy Athletic Center, which is actually the old Maple Leaf Gardens. So if you know me at all, I'm actually a Detroit Red Wings fan, but born and raised in Toronto. So even though I'm not a direct fan of the Leafs, I appreciate the importance of this building. I've been to this building many times as a hockey fan, having watched the Leafs growing up. So it means a lot to be there. Plus, I actually play hockey on that same ice every once in a while as part of my Sunday hockey league. So it's going to be neat to be doing something entirely different from that this weekend. The following weekend, if you happen to be in the East Coast area, I will be in Moncton, New Brunswick for East Coast Comic Expo. Though it's not free entry, the entry is very, very reasonable for this comic expo. So I do recommend checking it out if you're within driving distance of Moncton. It'll be a fun time, and I'd love to see you in person. On July 19th, I will be returning to Wayside Comics and Cocktails in Newmarket, Ontario for Indie Spotlight Day. So I'll be at the shop from when they open till 5 in the afternoon. If you want to come by, have a beer, have a coffee, come read some books, come pick up what I have on hand. It'll be a lot of fun, and it'll be cool just to hang out. If you haven't been to Wayside in Newmarket, I highly, highly recommend it. I love the place. Omar, the owner, is a wonderful human being. The guy has such a special shop there, and I absolutely love any excuse to go. So I was really honored that he reached out and asked me to return for a spotlight. So I'm very excited to do that on July 19th. And I just got an update as I'm recording this for Word on the Street. They're actually changing locations. So the image you might see on Substack has the wrong location. It will now be at David Pico Square, which is actually at King and John, right next to where my film school was. So it'll be kind of like a homecoming where I'll be at Word on the Street that weekend. It'll be a lot of fun. That is September 27th and 28th. I'm still on the wait list for Fan Expo Canada and Calgary Expo, and I've added myself to the wait list for Toronto Comic Con in March of 2026. And I can confirm I just landed my tickets for New York Comic Con. I will be there just the Saturday and the Sunday, but I will be there. So if you're in New York, I'd love to meet you. It'd be real cool to meet all the people in that area, because I know I've talked to a lot of people online, both just chatting or via the Instant Ink Comic Book Podcast. So this is my opportunity to get that networking done in person and get to finally meet those folks. And the Pesto Comics release calendar. So if you look at the Substack, it is packed. So I'm not going to go through everything. So what I will tell you about is From Parts Unknown number 4, launching June 25th. Please, if you haven't followed it yet, please do. We're just about 15 followers shy of 100. And I'm really hoping to cross that 100 mark before we hit launch. We'll see with the two cons. I'm really going to be pushing that on the weekend, so I hope people do follow the new Kickstarter. We'll see how that all goes. But that's the big campaign that's coming up next. After that, the next comic in line is Naked Kaiju Woman number 2. I'm not going to tell you the name yet. I'm going to wait to launch From Parts Unknown number 4 before I launch the pre-launch and finally spoil the last page of the first issue of Naked Kaiju Woman that tells you what the next issue name is going to be. I am still wrestling with actually using that title as is, or calling it Naked Kaiju Woman 2 with the subtitle of that name. We'll have to see. I think it might be the latter. Once you find out what the name is, you'll kind of understand where I'm headed with that. But nonetheless, I just received the 20th page from Raphael out of 32. JP has colored the first 10 pages, so we are well on track for this launch in September. If we're looking at the other side of things real quick, I know this is the Pesto Comics podcast, but I'm going to talk about the other side, which is Pulp Writerly, talking about writing novels and all that today. It just makes sense I'd bring it up. Project Hollywood #1. I'm using that code name. My goal is to launch that in August. I don't want it to get in the way of the Naked Kaiju Woman 2 launch, so I'm aiming for August. Worst case, this gets pushed out to October, but if all goes well, in August we will launch this, and you will be able to get your hands on the first novel in this very long series that I am planning and outlining right now. If it becomes very popular, you'll be well fed with these characters, and I'm absolutely loving living in this world and dealing with all the intricacies of all these characters and really getting into the heads of what's happening in this era. Without spoiling too much, it's set in the 1920s and 30s of Hollywood. So we're talking the silent era, the Hays Code, all this fun stuff, all this time of change and rapid movement and studio moguls and the studio system and the star system and all this crazy move fast and break things, but not in this gross tech way we do it now, in a totally different gross way. So it's a lot of fun to write. I really can't wait for you to read it, and I can't wait to just tell you what it is and speak about it plainly. But I can't do that until things are solidly in place and I get it with an editor and things are what they are and I can confirm exactly who's who and what's what. So hopefully by next month, I'm telling you in detail what this thing is. The other thing, Big Smoke Pulp Volume 2. I haven't opened the call for entries yet. Go figure. It's been 2 weeks. I said I was going to do it. I haven't done it yet. You saw my work log. It's on my list of things to do before I go to the East Coast. I really want to get that page up so that when people start submitting their short stories, I have a way of actually collecting these and making sense of them. You see that my to-be-read list is full as it is. When people start sending hundreds and hundreds of short stories, I want to be able to give them the time they deserve to actually read them and appreciate them properly. But I know that November, although it feels far right now, is just around the corner, just like everything else. So I want to make sure that the book is, at least together, I know what authors will be included in the book before I launch the Kickstarter. So I'll be opening that call for entries as soon as possible. That means fixing pestocomics.com, bigsmokepulp.com, and pulpwriterly.com. I'm working on it, guys. I really am. And on the Instant Ink comic book podcast, we have the second part of our conversation with the long box punk, Chris Stahl. Chris is awesome. I absolutely love the guy. He was so much fun to talk to, both on his podcast and our podcast. And honestly, I would love to have him back again if he were at all interested in doing so. We'll see if we ever get to repeat. We actually opened up the call to have people on the show, and we're booked right through to the end of the year now. Not to have people on, but in terms of airing the show, we're right through to December. So anybody that's recording from now through August, episodes will be from now through December. So we're pretty good for 2025. So any new guests that we have on will be for 2026. Come August, we'll have been doing the Instant Ink comic book podcast for a year. And we already know that we're going to go beyond that now. So it's really cool to see that something that was thought of in the food court just outside of TCAF a year ago has become something really cool. We have a lot of cool pages done. We talk to a lot of cool people, and we have so many more on docket. So if you're not following the Instant Ink comic book podcast, I totally recommend you do. And if you're an audio guy, if you're listening to the audio right now and you prefer audio, that's a 100% viable way to listen to the Instant Ink comic book podcast. It is actually a very listenable show. I do it myself just to check audio quality and stuff. I'm not always watching the screen. I find that I can follow along just fine. And then what you do is at the end of the show, you go check out the page we put together. If you don't want to see Roberto actually do the drawing, but you still want to be part of the conversation, it's a totally viable way of just listening to the show. And you could do that on any podcasting app that you have, whether that's Spotify, Pocket Casts, Apple Podcasts. It's on all of them. It's broadcast all of them. So yeah, it's good for a listen as it is for a watch. All right, with that, this was a very long post. I want to thank you for listening. It really wasn't supposed to be. I thought this would be one of my shorter ones since it's kind of off topic. This was one of those fill-in posts that I would have in my back pocket for when I don't have a launch or something like that. The original plan was to have launched From Parts Unknown #4 by now, but considering we pushed that, I created this gap. So I pulled one of my they can kind of fit anywhere topics out, and that's how we're here today. But I really got into it. I really talked about a lot of things. So I really do appreciate you listening. I won't keep you too long. I'll just remind you once again, if you're in Toronto, go to TCAF. If you're not in Toronto, I'm really going to focus on filming video. I want to put together a really cool vlog thing so you can kind of experience it through my eyes, kind of see what the whole thing's about. I'll walk around the floor with a camera. I'll see if my buddy Danon will do the same. He's my film school buddy too, so he also knows how to hold a camera and make things look nice. So hopefully between the two of us, we'll get some really cool video. And then I'll repeat that for the East Coast because I've never been out there. So I just want video for myself as like a travel log, but also to show folks what's going on with all these different conventions. So if you haven't been yourself, you can kind of experience it in a different way. They should be a lot of fun. And I appreciate you listening this week. It means a ton. I still have so much to do in terms of getting websites in order, but as far as my writing goes, I'm finally on top of it. So I got 2 different artists on 2 different projects that I haven't announced yet. That's Project Cut and Project Junk. I have 2 different artists working on those right now. So I have 2 totally different comic series that you haven't heard of yet that are being worked on right now. These are being actually worked on for pitches. We'll see if they make it out in the world. And if they don't, then I'll throw them on Kickstarter along with everything else from Pesto Comics. But the focus is really more of the mass market, which doesn't always work on Kickstarter, but we'll see. Hopefully it does. If not, I think it'll still do well on Kickstarter, but it's really geared more towards the guys that go to the LCS who are looking for a certain type of storytelling. That's the kind of story that we've been putting together with these 2 stories. They're totally different from all the other stuff I've done, but you know when I say it's totally different, it's a different genre, but it's still written by me, so it's very similar in the mindset and the frame of mind and all that kind of stuff that I bring to it. So if you like anything I've done, you'll probably like this too, but it's 2 genres that I haven't toyed with yet. So hopefully I'll be able to share those sooner than later, depending on how they land and where they end up. But what I'm focused on first is Project Hollywood. I really can't wait to share that with you. I just really want to get the developmental edit done on it before I really start sharing things again, because there will be so much in flux until that editor tears it apart and tells me what's working and what's not and who I should cut and who I should keep. Once it's at the stage that really all it needs is like a polish for diction and proofreading and that's when I can start sharing details, and I'll happily do so with the goal of launching in August, though I'm keeping October nice and clear just in case I need that extra time, because more than anything, I want to make sure that when you get a novel or when you back something from me, you're getting the best quality that I could possibly offer you, not just something driven just by the fact that I set a date and want to hit it. I want to make sure that you're getting something excellent from me, something that I've put all my energy into making good and readable for you. That's what I hope. That's what I want. That's my aim. So with all that, I want to thank you. I don't know if I'll get these epilogue things in when I do a vlog version of this for the next 2 weeks. So if you enjoy these off-the-cuff things, we'll return to them in a couple weeks. But for now, I want to thank you very much. Hopefully I'll see you in person. If not, I'll see you back on here. I've been a little more active on Substack notes. So if you're looking to talk with me or see what's up, jump in the Substack notes. I've been probably more, as I've cut back on all the other socials, Substack notes seems to be my home to talk with everybody because it seems to be the best environment. Just in terms of comments and everybody being supportive and less of the troll-y stuff going on. So Substack notes seems to be my social media of choice. So if you want to find me, that's where you can find me, though I'm also on Instagram and sometimes on Blue Sky. With that, I'm really going to go now. I thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful week. I'll talk to you on Saturday.